Welcome to Crown TV. Immerse yourself with a captivating audio from our stories. We provide an alternative way to read books in audio. We upload many audiobooks as possible, from bestsellers to timeless classic. Subscribe and stay tuned for new upload.
Episode 41, Taking the Blame. Alex no longer cared about what Mark had told him. He had bigger problems. What terrible luck. The universe was playing games with him. Now that he needed people to believe he was rich, he couldn't prove it. "Well, Alex," Kathy asked, "you wanted to prove you're rich, so where's the evidence? Can no one vouch for you?" She smiled when he couldn't answer. Everyone began talking again, and insults were hurled at Alex like artillery shells. Unable to answer, Alex merely glared at them. "Alex," Debbie whispered, looking worried. Alex stayed silent, but his expression was serious as he thought about what to do. "Alex, hand over the rest of the stolen money right now, or we'll have no choice but to call the police," Mr. Berkeley said, once again pressuring Alex. "Yes, have him arrested," Kathy urged. "He won't admit anything right now," someone said, "but once he's at the police station, he'll come clean." Alex wanted to argue, but his account had been frozen, and he couldn't prove anything. He held Debbie's hand tightly as he looked around at everyone. "Do it. Call the police," Mr. Berkeley ordered. A few impatient boys rushed toward Alex. "Leave him alone. I took the money," Debbie shouted. Everyone stopped talking and stared at her. "Debbie, don't be silly. Why would you do such a thing?" Mr. Morgan gaped at Debbie in disbelief. She looked at Mr. Morgan and then bowed her head. "I'm sorry to let you down, Mr. Morgan. I stole the cell phone and the money. No one else was involved. I'm so sorry." "Did you do it all by yourself?" asked Mr. Berkeley. "Don't lie to protect Alex." She waved a phone at them. "Look, this is Mr. Morgan's phone. If Kathy hadn't caught me red-handed, I wouldn't have admitted anything. Stealing that much money is serious, and I'm not stupid enough to take the blame for someone else." It made sense, and everyone seemed to believe her. "In that case, we need to go to the police station." Mr. Berkeley grabbed Debbie's arm, ready to leave with her. Debbie glanced at Alex. Seeing him unsure of what to do, she was willing to take the blame to protect him from any injustice. Although she didn't know where she would get the $350,000, and even though she might face severe punishment, she wasn't afraid. Instead, she was determined to help him. Alex began to panic. He hadn't expected Debbie to protect him. Shocked, he realized how much she must love him. How could he possibly let her take the blame for him? When Debbie looked at him, he felt guilty. As a man, how could he allow a woman to protect him? That just wasn't something he could do. "Debbie, don't cover for me," Alex said, smiling faintly at her. He was lucky to have such a woman in his life. Debbie was stunned and didn't understand what Alex was saying. "What do you mean?" Mr. Berkeley asked. He considered Alex's words. "Are you telling me that she's lying? You took the money, didn't you?" "If I denied it, would you believe me?" Alex asked with a shrug. "Aren't you here because you thought I did it?" "Ha! You finally admitted it," Kathy taunted him. "Debbie couldn't possibly have done such a thing." "No, he's lying. I did it." Debbie knew that Alex wanted to protect her. "Debbie, stop," Alex said. "I planned everything. I stole Mr. Morgan's money, and then I tried to use you to get rid of it all. The idea was to spend the money on you as quickly as possible, but it was taking too long, so I decided to donate most of it." "No! If that were true, then why would I admit to it? And why would you confess?" Debbie shook her head. "That makes no sense. You're lying." But nobody seemed to be convinced by her arguments. Alex laughed. "You're too naive. How long do you think you'll be able to keep lying to the police? It's over, Debbie. Let it go." Debbie was too stunned to argue. "Alex, is that true? You were just using me? Debbie's eyes shone with tears. Alex's deception hurt more than the thought of going to jail. I'm sorry. His gaze slid away. 2 tears slipped down Debbie's cheeks, and the strength drained from her, leaving her so shaky that a single puff of air could knock her over. Debbie, are you okay? Alex asked with concern, reaching out to help her. Leave me alone, Debbie yelled as she slapped his face. She stared at him with tears still sliding down her face. You lied to me. Why? Why did you lie to me? She glared at him and then ran out of the ward. Alex watched her leave, feeling a little dazed. Debbie didn't realize how much he cared about her. She had been willing to take the blame for him. Couldn't she see that he wanted to do the same for her? Oh, Alex, I thought you genuinely liked Debbie. I can't believe you were just using her. I'm so glad I dumped you, Kathy taunted him, while everyone else began to insult him. Alex simply blocked them out, his mind still on Debbie. He only hoped she wouldn't do anything stupid. The university officials started discussing the matter. Mr. Morgan didn't want to create a fuss, and they had already recovered part of the stolen money, so they decided not to inform the police. Hopefully that would protect the university's reputation. Alex was ordered to repay the money within 5 years. After the agreement was reached, everyone dispersed. It was late by the time Alex returned to the university. He wanted to call Debbie and check in on her, but he decided against it. He had no way of fixing the problem. So if he called, what would he say? Besides, she probably needed time to calm down. When he reached the dorm, his roommates had also heard about the incident and told him not to worry. Too tired to talk to them, he simply went to sleep. The next day, Alex was woken at 10:30 in the morning by his phone ringing. It was the cheerleader, Zara. Alex, why did it take you so long to answer? Zara asked. I'm calling you to let you know my cousin is free for lunch, so I've arranged for you to meet her at the Central Plaza. Make sure you clean yourself up before you come. Zara, why didn't you give me more notice? I don't want to go anywhere. Alex was in no mood to go out after the previous day's incident. Hey, since when do I answer to you? If you don't want to come, then don't, Zara said, ending the call. Alex had promised Zara that he would help her cousin, so he wouldn't let her down. Besides, he couldn't solve his money problems anyway, so he may as well do this. He got washed and dressed, and then he hurried to the Central Plaza. Zara and Karen were sitting under an umbrella, drinking lemonade. Zara tossed her phone onto the table. What is it? Karen asked, her heart beating faster. Doesn't Alex want to come? So what? Don't worry, he'll come anyway. And if he doesn't, then I'll take care of it, Zara said confidently. Karen's heart stopped pounding. She took a sip of her lemonade and glanced at Zara. Zara's attitude toward Alex was still quite mean, so she didn't know he was rich. That's good, Karen thought. This means I have one less opponent. Hey, did you hear what that loser Alex did? Zara laughed when she thought about the situation at Shrimp King the other day. No, what? Karen was especially interested in hearing anything about Alex. He was asking for money at the entrance. Zara filled her in on the incident. Yeah, what a loser, Karen agreed. Of course, she didn't believe for a minute that Alex had asked for money, so Zara must have misunderstood. After all, when Karen first met Alex, she had also thought he was a loser with no money. But the idiot surprised us, Zara said. He turned up in a Mercedes-Benz. Karen choked on her drink. What? She wasn't surprised by the car. Many of the Supreme cardholders at the Metro Skybank drove such cars. But what if Zara realized Alex was seriously rich? Karen, you should see your face, Zara laughed. Were you thinking that the loser is rich? No, I asked Rachel, and she told me that it wasn't Alex's car. He was just driving it and acting tough. Really? Zara, you're enjoying this far too much. Karen relaxed again. Zara didn't suspect anything. "No, that's not it. I know Alex, and that car doesn't belong to him," Zara said confidently, even though she had believed it was his at the time and had begged Alex for a ride. Episode 42, The Date. Zara had no idea that Alex was rich, so Karen stopped paying attention to her and started to fix her makeup. "Karen, this is your big chance to get James to admit his feelings. Hurry up and finish making yourself look pretty. If you get any prettier, I'll be jealous," Zara teased. "I know I need to make the most of this opportunity," Karen said, applying mascara to her eyelashes. "Does she think I'd go to this much trouble for James?" she thought. "No, I'm trying to attract Alex, not James." Zara had no idea what Karen was thinking. "It's still early, so let's take a stroll in the mall." Zara took Karen's arm and went to pull her into the shopping mall. "No, Alex will be here soon. It would be rude to not be here when he arrives." Karen refused to move. Meeting up with Alex was the most important thing she had to do. Nothing else mattered. "Why do you care so much about a loser like him?" Zara pouted. 20 minutes later, Alex stepped out of the taxi, and his eyes lit up when he saw two beautiful women walking toward him. Karen was very pretty. She was tall and curvy with long, wavy hair. Her makeup highlighted her beautiful face, and the split in her long skirt provided flashes of her legs as she walked. She was every man's fantasy. "You're late." Zara slapped Alex's shoulder. "And you made us wait for you. Who do you think you are?" "Zara, stop it." Karen stuck up for him. "The university isn't that close, and 20 minutes isn't long at all." She turned to Alex. "Sorry, you know how impatient my cousin can be." Zara felt uncomfortable. "Why is my cousin saying that about me?" she thought. "He's just a loser. Why is she taking his side?" But then she remembered that her cousin was tricking Alex into liking her, and Zara's resentment faded as she understood. "Alex, what happened to the Mercedes? Why did you come in a taxi?" Zara crossed her arms as she smirked at Alex. After what had happened the previous day, Alex didn't want to hide his identity anymore. Karen started to panic. Would Alex admit who he was? "It's over," she thought. "Zara is going to find out." "Did you send the Mercedes to the garage for repairs?" Zara sneered. It was hard to tell when this loser was lying. He was just too good at it. "Stop pretending. Rachel already told me the car isn't yours. You were just trying to play the big man that day." "Oh?" Alex said, annoyed at Zara's attitude. "Then tell me, if that wasn't my car, then why didn't I make Howard pay for the damage? I'm just a poor loser, remember? I can't afford that much money." Zara didn't have an answer for that. She blushed as she tried to think of an explanation. "You just wanted to act tough in front of us," Zara said in exasperation. "Besides, you're so poor that it still doesn't make a difference how much it costs. Even if it was only $100, you still couldn't pay it back." Tired of arguing, she didn't even give him a chance to respond. She pushed him and kicked him a few times. "Don't you dare talk back to me." Zara's kicks didn't hurt, so Alex couldn't be bothered to fight with her. "Karen, be careful," Zara said. "This loser looks honest, but he's a schemer." "It's fine, don't worry about us," Karen said. "Zara, don't you have an appointment to get to?" She winked. They had agreed that after Alex arrived, Zara would leave and call James, asking him to come. When he saw Alex, he would be overcome with jealousy. Karen had been forced to go along with the plan to prevent Zara from asking questions. Simply dating Alex without agreeing to have James appear would have been too suspicious. Of course, she couldn't let James sabotage her date with Alex, so she needed to find a secluded place where James wouldn't find her, and then she would think of a way to explain it to Zara later. Karen had her plan, and she would be careful not to make any mistakes. "Oh, that's right. I promised my best friend I'd go to the gym with her." Zara rolled her eyes and looked at Alex slyly. "Alex, stay here and keep my cousin company." Zara smirked. When she brought James to the restaurant, Alex would be embarrassed, and James might even hit him. She enjoyed tormenting Alex. "Alex, you loser," she thought. "You're so annoying. Well, just wait and see what happens. Do you think my cousin cares about you?" She smiled when she thought about how Alex had no idea what was going on and didn't know he might get beaten up later. Leaving them to it, Zara walked away. After a few minutes, she turned around and saw Karen holding Alex's arm as they walked toward a nearby restaurant. "Karen, what the heck?" Zara mumbled to herself. "It's just an act. You don't need to touch him. Is he taking advantage of you?" She took out her cell phone and dialed. "James, are you busy?" "No?" "Then can you come to the Central Plaza? I really need a ride." "Okay, I'll be waiting here. Hurry." When she ended the call, she was quite pleased with herself for being so smart. If she had simply said that Karen was dating a loser, James would probably have seen through it. But if she could arrange for James to bump into Karen on a date with a loser, he would get jealous. Half an hour later, an Audi A5 pulled into the Central Plaza. A man with a neat buzz cut and a pair of dark glasses stepped out of the car. "James, you came." Zara walked over, smiling at him. She had met him a few times through Karen, so she knew him reasonably well. He didn't seem very intelligent, which is why Zara thought their trick might work. "Yeah, I've been busy with work for the past few days, and haven't had time to visit your cousin. How is she?" he asked with a faint smile. "Every time we meet, you always ask about my cousin. It's enough to make a girl jealous," she teased him. "Karen has been quite busy recently, but I don't know what exactly she's been up to." Karen was intentionally vague. The less she explained, the more curious he would become, and then he would become anxious. That way, when he discovered Karen on a date with Alex, he would get worked up. Oh? Sure enough, he was already suspicious. When he had first seen Karen on a blind date, he had been deeply attracted to her. He had believed that whoever admitted to being in love first would be in a weaker position within the relationship. So he had been waiting for Karen to say she loved him. But he hadn't expected her to behave in the same way. And now she seemed to have lost interest. "Where do you want me to take you?" he asked Zara. "Well, it's already noon and I haven't eaten yet. So how about I treat you to lunch in exchange for you giving me a ride?" Zara asked, her tone a little weird. James's expression suggested that there was something on his mind. James didn't object, seeing it as an opportunity to get more information about Karen. Laughing and talking with James, Zara walked toward the restaurant where Karen and Alex were having lunch. But when they went in, she couldn't see her cousin anywhere. "Let's go somewhere else," she said. "The service here is terrible." She pulled James back outside as she wondered what had gone wrong. Karen was supposed to be in this restaurant, so where was she now? Had she changed her mind? She couldn't call Karen, so she texted her instead, but still received no reply. So she had no choice but to lead James around the mall, searching each restaurant for her cousin. "Zara, where do you want to eat?" James asked with resentment. He was getting annoyed at being dragged around. Zara was still trying to work out what to do when she spotted Alex and Karen through a window of a restaurant. "This place looks pretty good. Shall we eat here?" Zara smiled. She needed to get him inside the restaurant to see her cousin and Alex. It would be much more exciting for him to come face to face with them rather than just seeing them through a window. "Oh, my stomach hurts and I have to go to the toilet," Zara said, clutching at her stomach as if she was in pain. "James, you go on ahead and order for us." James didn't say anything but simply walked toward the restaurant. Zara watched him enter. Hiding in an inconspicuous place, she settled in to watch what happened. She was looking forward to seeing James get angry and confront Alex. "Oh, Karen, you changed locations at the last minute," Zara muttered to herself. "I don't know why you didn't tell me, but I still managed to find you. So when you work things out with James, don't forget your little cousin. When you get your hands on his money, I'll be due a nice reward." Episode 43. Who Are You? Karen didn't expect Zara to find the restaurant where she and Alex were eating. She had secretly changed the location, hoping that would trick her cousin into leaving them alone. She focused her attention completely on Alex, who was sitting across the table from her. She had hoped to make the most of this opportunity, but he seemed quiet and withdrawn. Alex couldn't stop thinking about what had happened the day before, and couldn't forget the look on Debbie's face when she had left. His heart felt like it was being stabbed with a knife. "Alex, you've obviously got something on your mind. What's wrong?" Karen asked. "You can tell me. It might make you feel better." He slowly raised his eyes, and when he saw Karen's gentle smile, he felt a little better. "If you had a misunderstanding with the person you love the most, and they turned against you or refused to forgive you, what would you do?" he asked. His heart felt heavy, and he was afraid that Debbie would never speak to him again. Karen was surprised by his words, and she felt uneasy. No matter who this unknown woman was, she definitely couldn't be allowed to steal Alex away. Alex had had his heart broken, she thought. The person he loves the most should trust him completely, and then there would be no misunderstanding. Karen was used to dealing with people, and she knew she couldn't be too direct. But if she pointed him in the right direction, she was sure he would figure it out. "Alex, do you love her?" Karen asked, watching him carefully. He nodded, causing Karen's heart to sink. She forced a small smile. "If you're honest with her, and she still doesn't trust you, then perhaps she doesn't take your relationship as seriously as you do. Maybe you should walk away," Karen said as she thought about how to handle this problem. Could she be right? Alex wondered. He didn't know what to think. It was all so complicated. Karen felt relieved when she saw that he was considering her advice. Now that she knew she had a potential love rival, she had to move quickly. If she was too slow, then she would miss her chance. "Cheer up, Alex," she said. "There are plenty of fish in the sea." She edged closer to him and slowly slid her hand across the table. Although she knew she was being far too forward, the situation was urgent, and she had to take the risk. Besides, from what she knew of Alex, he wouldn't be angry. She was so close to Alex's hand. Just a few inches more and she would be touching him. She moved her hand to within half an inch, then closer. Just as she was about to make contact, a loud voice came from beside her. "Karen, what are you doing here? And who is this?" James demanded. He had been so focused on Alex that she hadn't even seen him arrive. "James!" Karen gaped at him in surprise. This was a problem. Zara, her annoying cousin, had managed to track her down. "Karen, what's going on? I want an explanation now." James stared at her. This was the exact situation she had once wanted. With anyone else, it would have worked brilliantly. She would have shed a few tears, and James would have blamed himself and then confessed his love for her. But everything had changed. She was sitting here with Alex, who had a Supreme card proving he had over $30 million. Compared to Alex, James was nothing. Karen didn't even bother to answer any questions. She pointed outside as she glared at him. "Go away. This has nothing to do with you." Alex was confused. He frowned at James and asked, "Who are you?" To James, this was a blatant provocation. "Kid, you have some nerve asking who I am," he said angrily. "I'm Karen's boyfriend. So if you know what's good for you, get lost." "That's nonsense. When did I agree to that?" Karen shouted. Now that she wanted Alex, James was getting in the way. James and Karen had met on a blind date set up by their families. Although their relationship was intimate, neither of them had defined what they were to each other. James was at his wit's end trying to understand her. "If we're not a couple, then why do you think I brought you expensive gifts?" he demanded. "Why do we call each other every night before we go to sleep?" "James, don't be stupid," Karen said with a sneer. "I'm not responsible for what you believe. As far as I'm concerned, we're just friends." "I get it," James scowled. "It's because of this kid, isn't it? He glared at Alex. "You dare to steal my girlfriend? You must have a death wish." With that, James raised his hand toward Alex, ready to teach him a lesson. But before it could land a single blow, Karen slapped him hard, stunning him. Karen hadn't hesitated to hit James. If he beat up Alex, it would ruin everything. And maybe Alex would be grateful to her for intervening. And then she would be even closer to winning his affection. "I think I should go." Alex was embarrassed by the scene. He stood up and walked outside. Karen glanced at James before running after Alex. "Alex, I'm sorry about that," Karen called to him as they left the restaurant. "It's fine. It's not your fault," he smiled. "That's the person I told you about earlier," she explained. "The one who's been chasing me. He's made several scenes like that. I keep saying no, but he just doesn't listen, and sometimes he even attacks me." Karen lowered her head, covered her face, and began to cry softly. "Please, don't cry. I don't think he'll bother you anymore." She seemed so helpless and sad that Alex couldn't help but comfort her. Karen took this opportunity to move closer to him, and then she gently leaned into his chest. When he didn't immediately push her away, she felt a moment of triumph. She pressed herself fully against him and nuzzled at his neck. One moment, Alex was worried about Karen, and the next, he was completely focused on her body. She was quite alluring. Her face was pressed into his neck. Her skin was smooth, and her hair trickled him every time she moved. A faint fragrance drifted up, but it wasn't perfume, merely her natural scent. Alex's heart softened, while another part of him became hard. His hands trembled with nerves as he started to hug her back. But then he pictured Debbie, and his entire body shook as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water over him. Guilt swamped him. He hadn't resolved the misunderstanding with Debbie yet, so what was he doing dreaming about another woman? "I'm an idiot," he thought. "I'm the one responsible for the situation with Debbie. If I lose her because of this, I'll have no one to blame but myself." He cursed himself and pushed Karen away. "Karen, I'm sorry. There's something I have to do. I have to go," he said. And then he left without looking back. "Alex? Alex!" Karen called after him, but he didn't stop. She could only stamp her foot in frustration as he fled from her. A moment later, Zara ran over and pulled her away. "Karen, you nearly lost me," Zara said, smiling. "You weren't where you were supposed to be, but luckily I was smart enough to find you, even though I had to check more than 10 different restaurants." "I suppose I should thank you," Karen managed to squeeze out through gritted teeth. Looking at Zara's smiling expression, she fought the urge to hit her cousin. "No need to thank me. I was happy to help." Zara didn't notice the hatred in her cousin's eyes. "Oh, Karen, your acting was so realistic. If I hadn't known better, I'd have thought you were fighting with James because you wanted Alex." She grinned. "Did you see his reaction? When you left, James was completely stunned. I think you've really provoked him this time. He'll definitely propose to you soon." "I hit James and he still wants to propose to me?" Karen thought. "It's such a joke. He's nothing compared to Alex, so how could I possibly fall for him?" "I've been feeling really bad about what you've had to go through," Zara said. "It must have been awful having to look at Alex's face all the time. Well, the plan worked, and in a few days you'll get what you wanted. When that happens, we'll get rid of Alex and have some fun with him." Malice shone from her eyes. Karen felt sick. If she hadn't been worried about moving too fast, she would have kissed Alex. Zara wants to humiliate Alex, she thought. But just wait until I marry him, and then she'll find out his identity. We'll see if she's still smiling then. Episode 44, Looking for Debbie. Alex was still feeling guilty, and there was only one person on his mind, Debbie. He needed to find her. Only then would he be able to calm down. He knew she was most likely to be in one of two places, her dorm room or the villa in the Green Island Garden District. After everything that had happened, she probably wouldn't be at the villa, but Alex decided to check there first. Maybe he was just stalling while he worked up the courage to face her. Or maybe he was hoping for a miracle. Perhaps she had already forgiven him and was waiting for him inside. When he arrived at the Green Island Garden District, he was both hopeful and worried. He walked toward the villa, taking one step at a time. He opened the door, but there was no miracle. The villa was empty. His heart sank. Just thinking about Debbie's current attitude toward him made him feel awful. He returned to Preston University. If Debbie wasn't at the villa, then she must be in the dorm. Although he was worried about how she might react to him, he felt worse when she wasn't around. Even if she yelled at him or hit him, that would be better than not seeing her at all. He waited until no one was paying attention, and then he slipped into the girls' dormitory. When he found Debbie's room, he pushed open the door and rushed inside. "Debbie?" Alex called out anxiously. But Debbie wasn't in the dorm, only Madison and two other girls. "Get out, you pervert!" Madison pointed at him angrily. "Where's Debbie?" He was really worried about her. Where had she run off to? "That dog, Debbie? How would I know where she went scrounging for food?" Madison drawled. The two other girls looked at each other and laughed. "Tell me where Debbie is!" Alex shouted. He could see that they knew where she was, and they were just making fun of him. "I already told you," Madison shrugged. "Where do dogs go to eat?" "We don't know. Are you deaf or simply stupid?" The two other girls laughed even harder. "Get lost. You're stinking up our dorm." She started to push him out the door, and the two other girls stood up, ready to help. Alex was furious. He grabbed Madison's hair and pulled hard. She yelled in shock, and the other two girls came over to attack him. He shoved them away and kicked at the door, breaking its hinges. Madison stared at him, clearly afraid. "Tell me, where is Debbie?" Alex asked fiercely. If Madison teased him again, he wouldn't be able to control himself. "She dropped out of school," she said, panicking. Alex was stunned. He had never considered that. How could someone like Debbie drop out of school? "Nonsense, where is she?" he roared, giving Madison a little shake. "If you don't tell me, I'll beat you to death." "She really dropped out of school," Madison said, eyeing him warily. "Our teacher told us, if you don't believe me, you can ask anyone." She was afraid Alex would get even more violent. His gaze shot toward the other two girls huddled on the floor. "Yes, it's true," one of them said, cowering. "The teacher told us," the other girl added. Did Debbie drop out? He wondered. Why? She doesn't know anyone in New York, so where is she? "When did she leave?" he asked. "Last night around midnight," said one of the girls carefully. "She packed up her clothes, but I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't know she dropped out of school." Alex let go of Madison, who quickly moved aside, looking at him in fear. He turned around and walked out, his heart heavy. "Hey, what are you doing in the female dormitory?" The dorm manager had arrived. She glanced at Madison's room and said, "Your room is a mess. Did this boy cause it? I'll inform the school authorities and write up a report." "No, it has nothing to do with him," Madison said, running her fingers through her messy hair to tidy it. "Really?" the woman said, confused. She scowled at Alex. "Get out of here. As a young man, you have no business being in the female dormitory." "Madison, why don't you tell her about Alex?" one of the girls asked, rubbing at her sore wrist. "He stole money from Mr. Morgan. If we tell everyone what he did here, he'll definitely get kicked out." "If we get Alex thrown out, then how would we get revenge?" A trace of a cold smile appeared on Madison's face, and her voice grew positively icy. "Besides, the Kappa Alpha Society's in trouble. If we report this to the school, then everyone will laugh at us." Alex called Debbie, but she didn't answer. He searched the school and the entire neighborhood like a madman, but she was nowhere to be found. At midnight, he walked to the edge of Ramsey Lake and sat down on the big rock where he and Debbie had once shared some food. The pale moonlight was reflected in the lake. He sat there all alone in the cool night. Images flashed through his mind. Debbie laughing, looking sad, being shy, eating, walking, reading. The pictures flew by like a slideshow, but he had no idea where she was now. He didn't dare to think about Debbie being out there all alone, maybe afraid, helpless. A tear rolled down his face, then another. He continued to search for 3 days, but there was still no sign of her. It was as if she had never existed. By the 4th day, he was in despair. He started to think that he would never see her again. For the next few days, he wallowed in misery. He refused to go to class and stayed in bed all day. Most of the time, he simply lay there and stared at the ceiling, but occasionally he would cry loudly. Ben, Joe, and Carl were worried about him, but when they asked what had happened, he didn't answer, so they assumed he was upset about having to repay the stolen money. They brought him food, forcing him to eat and drink. Finally, they couldn't take it anymore. They knew Alex couldn't go on like this, or he would make himself ill. So they dragged him out of bed and took him to the bathroom to get clean. "Alex, you can't just stay in the dorm all the time. In fact, don't come back to the dorm before 10. Go someplace else and relax," Joe said. Then they firmly shut the dormitory door. Worried about Alex, they opened the door 5 minutes later to check on him, but he was no longer there. Alex left the dormitory and wandered until he reached Ramsey Lake. After sitting beside the lake for an hour, he realized that Debbie would be disappointed to see him like this. He took a deep breath and stood up. He walked to the school gate and hailed a taxi to take him into the city. As he watched the scenery pass by through the car window, Alex thought about Debbie. He hoped to spot her somewhere, even if it was a long shot. After 4 hours of simply driving around, the driver's shift was finished, so he dropped Alex off somewhere in the city. Alex walked into a high-class restaurant and sat down. He had wanted to take Debbie here for a meal, but she had disappeared before he could fulfill his promise. "Sir, are you ready to order?" the waiter asked, wondering about this sad-looking customer. Alex pulled himself together. "I'd like the fried lobster, some oysters, a seafood platter, pumpkin soup, the lamb cutlet, the steak with black pepper." Alex ordered a total of more than 10 dishes. "Sir, are you planning to eat all that food by yourself?" the waiter asked with his mouth wide open. "It's fine," Alex said lightly. The waiter was still worried, so Alex showed him his wallet, which had enough cash to pay for the meal and still have a little left over. Satisfied, the waiter left to arrange the food. "Debbie," Alex thought, "when I find you, I'll bring you here to make up for the harm I've caused you." The dishes were brought out and placed on the table, one after another. "Can I have 2 sets of tableware?" Alex asked. "Oh, so you're expecting friend?" The waiter smiled. At least he's not eating all that food by himself, he thought. He went to get the 2 sets of tableware. Alex looked at the empty seat across from him and felt a bit depressed. "Debbie," he sighed. He picked up a prawn and placed it on the plate in front of him. "Here, have a taste." "Well, what do you think?" "I remember you saying that you liked prawns." Alex picked up the red wine and poured it into a glass. "This red wine is world famous. Try it." The waiter was dumbfounded. He opened his eyes wide and stared at Alex in disbelief. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. There was still no one else there. He tried to warn Alex, but he was too busy talking to the air, as if someone was sitting in front of him. The waiter felt chills down his spine. He looked at Alex with a hint of fear. Was he talking to a ghost? What if there's a ghost sitting across from him, he thought, and I can't see it, but he can? "Ah, he must really be in love," said one customer watching the scene. "I wonder if the girl he's speaking to left him or if she died," someone else said. "That's so sad," came a third voice. Everyone was watching Alex. They could tell he was missing a woman he loved deeply. "Damn, hey guys, look at this. There's a fool over there talking to himself." A discordant voice came from not too far away. Episode 45. You're Not Getting Rid of Me. The voice came from a table about 10 meters away, and the female customers all glared in that direction. "I think he really believes someone is there," one person said. "Who knows which mental hospital this guy escaped from?" "No, he's just missing his girlfriend," someone answered. "Look at him. He looks miserable. I'm guessing his girlfriend either died or ran off with another man." Alex had been ignoring all the surrounding talk, but when they insulted Debbie, he grew angry. He slapped his hand down on the table and stood up, glaring at the 6 or 7 people sitting nearby. They wore flowery shirts and gold chains, and many of them had tattoos on display. "Hey, kid, what do you want?" a man asked. "Do you have something you want to say to us?" Debbie was Alex's sore spot. If anyone insulted her, no matter who they were, he would shut them up. He picked up the bottle of red wine and rushed over to their table, splashing the wine as he ran. "Alex!" a delicate voice whispered to him. It was Debbie. Alex was stunned. He glanced at the seat opposite his and saw Debbie sitting there quietly. His anger drained away, and he smiled. "Come back and sit down," she said, gesturing to his chair. "Let's eat." "Okay." He stared at her face for a moment, and then he put the bottle back on the table and sat down. The other customers were all astounded. What on earth? Who was he talking to? There was no one across the table from him. Had he gone insane? The whispers began again. How crazy is this guy? He's just pretending to be insane to avoid a beating. Well, if that guy dares to come over here, I'll deal with him. Ignore him. Maybe he really did escape from a mental hospital. Alex didn't even hear what they were saying. He was too busy watching Debbie. She smiled as if she had already forgiven him, and he was happy to just sit there with her. Damn it, you splashed wine on my arm, you idiot! Suddenly there was a roar in the dining room, followed by the sound of a table and chairs being knocked over. What the hell is wrong with you? As Alex was handing a plate of food to Debbie, she screamed and fell to the ground as if she had been hit by something. Debbie, what's wrong? He rushed to help her, but she disappeared with a pop. Debbie? Debbie? He shouted in panic, looking around to see where she had gone. Sir, calm down. The waiter tried to take him back to his seat. Alex clutched at the waiter's shirt. Did you see my girlfriend? He said anxiously. She was just sitting here and then she disappeared. Have you hidden her somewhere? Sir, your girlfriend was never here. It was all just in your imagination. If you don't believe me, then look. The waiter tried his best to explain as he pointed at the empty seat. Alex looked across the table filled with dishes, including prawns and caviar. But Debbie had been eating them, hadn't she? Realization struck. He had been imagining everything. I'm sorry, he whispered to the waiter as he prepared to leave. Do you think you can just say sorry and that's it? A voice shouted. Hell no. I'm Bruno Franklin, and I'm sure you've heard of me. You've ruined my shirt, so you need to come home with me and wash it by hand. That's the only way this gets settled. As Alex headed toward the door, he heard fabric tearing, and a girl screamed, Don't touch me! He ground to a halt, feeling like he had been struck by lightning. That was Debbie's voice. His heart lurched within his chest. What if it was just his mind playing tricks on him again? He slowly turned around and walked towards Bruno's table. There were already a lot of people gathered at the table, so he couldn't see the girl at first. The manager of the restaurant had already rushed over to join the crowd. He frowned when he saw the conflict between Debbie and Bruno. Even without asking, the manager knew that Bruno had been deliberately causing trouble. On an earlier occasion, Bruno had used this trick to bully a waitress into leaving with him, and he had then assaulted her. The restaurant had ended up paying the waitress a lot of money to keep quiet. Bruno, however, had suffered no consequences. He was part of the underworld and had a lot of influence. No one was willing to stand up to him. You useless girl! You've offended Mr. Franklin! Get out of my sight now! The manager glared at the waitress as he yelled. The woman he scolded was none other than Debbie. Debbie's cheeks burned with shame. Everyone was staring while they stood there in her torn clothes. But she knew that the manager was helping her. By sending her away, he was making sure she could escape Bruno. When Alex walked over, he only caught a glimpse of Debbie's back as she slipped away. He squeezed through the crowd and followed her into the kitchen. The manager was still apologizing to Bruno and trying to placate him. He had to be careful not to knock over the food racks as he made his way through the narrow kitchen, trying to find Debbie. The room bustled with activity, and the staff were all too busy doing their jobs to pay any attention to him. "What happened to the girl?" one of the cooks asked. "Oh, that gangster Bruno Franklin is here again and set his sights on her," a waitress replied. "The manager is currently dealing with Bruno outside." "That girl is such a little mouse," the cook said. "She works all day, barely saying a word. She does night shifts and day shifts, practically working around the clock. If she wasn't so young, this strain would probably have killed her by now. I don't know why anyone would need to work that hard." "I heard that she's working to pay off her boyfriend's debts," the waitress said. "Haven't you noticed that she doesn't even spend a single cent of the money she earns?" "Ah, what a useless boyfriend," the chef shook her head. "That poor girl's life is far too tragic. If I were that pretty, I could just go out and randomly pick up a man, and it would probably still work out better than that." The waitress felt the weight of someone staring at her. Worried it was the head chef catching them gossiping, she turned around and saw Alex, who was stunned by what he had overheard. "I'm sorry, sir," she said. "Customers are not allowed in the kitchen. Please return to the dining area." "Where's the girl you were talking about?" Alex asked. "Debbie? Why? What do you want with her?" the waitress asked, puzzled. When he heard Debbie's name, Alex felt energized. He had almost found her. "I'm the useless boyfriend you were talking about," Alex said absent-mindedly. "You're Debbie's boyfriend, the worthless piece of trash?" the cook asked, glaring at him. "Debbie is such a sweet girl, and you have her working herself to death to repay your debt? What kind of man are you?" The waitress looked at Alex and sighed at his miserable expression. "Come with me," she said, leading him further into the kitchen. In the corner of the kitchen, Alex spotted Debbie sitting on the floor, hugging her knees. Finally, he began to calm down. He stopped walking and stared at her. Her sobs echoed through the room. The right shoulder of her shirt was ripped open, revealing her beautiful skin, and her face was pressed into her knees. Tears leaked from his eyes as he watched her. He moved slowly toward her, one step at a time. His heart filled with shame and regret, and he knew he had to apologize to make this right. He crouched down beside her and carefully reached out to touch her. "I'm sorry, sir," she sobbed. "Please don't fire." She lifted her head when he touched her, preparing to beg the manager for her job. But when she saw Alex's face, she stopped talking and stared at him in surprise. Then, feeling a little uncomfortable, she lowered her head, breaking eye contact. "Debbie, don't you recognize me? It's Alex." He tried to get her to look at him. "Are you still angry with me?" he asked. "I'm a terrible person, and I don't deserve to live." Alex started to slap his face, but Debbie should be the one hitting him for making her suffer so much. "Stop it." She pulled his hand away from his face. "Debbie," he cried out, hugging her tightly. He never wanted her to leave him again. Debbie's heart melted when Alex hugged her. She had planned to earn enough money to repay him and never see him again. But while they had been apart, she hadn't been able to forget his voice or his smile. She had been thinking of him constantly, unable to eat or speak because she had missed him so much. Now, he was standing right here beside her, and it felt like she was dreaming. She hugged him back, and the warmth of his body helped her relax. Alex slowly let go and pulled back to see her face. He wanted to explain that he hadn't been using her, and that his feelings for her were real. "I'm sorry, Shh. She covered his mouth with her hand. "You don't need to say anything. I don't care if you lied to me or not. I'm hopelessly in love with you, Alex, and I'll stick by you for the rest of my life. If you get tired of me, you'll have to chase me away." She looked into his eyes. Over the last few days, she'd had a lot of time to think, and she had come to a decision. Without Alex, she would never be happy. Nothing else was important. Alex was deeply touched. Even if he had lied to her, she would still have forgiven him. "I'm far too single-minded to drive you away," he said, smiling. "I've chosen to be with you, and I'll never change my mind." Debbie smiled shyly. She was so happy to be with him. "Look, I've managed to earn $1,000, she said, pulling some banknotes out of her pocket. "And when you graduate, we can both earn money and pay back the money even faster." Looking at Debbie's earnest expression, Alex felt a little sad. "You two are just so cute." The chef and the waitress smiled when they saw that Alex and Debbie had made up. "This is bullshit. If you don't start showing me some respect, I'll destroy your restaurant," Bruno roared from outside the kitchen. "Debbie, stay here," Alex said, smiling at her. "I'll be back in a minute." "Are you looking for Debbie, Bruno?" he thought. "Well, let's just see how big a man you are."
Thank you for listening to Crown TV. Please don't forget to subscribe, share and turn on the notification button.